how to avoid nutrient burn. Come on, let's get into it. If you haven't burnt your plants before, it's bad, okay? When you burn your plants, you've got too much nutrient going in there. It has nowhere to go. It goes to the edges. It can't go any further, and it starts burning, and it starts destroying that leaf. It starts destroying its ability to photosynthesize, to build out of the light. So it's a big deal. We've got to keep these leaves in good shape.
Okay, so you told me that leaves are like the solar panel of your plant.
Absolutely.
So they absorb the light, they turn it into plant material. And I'm thinking if I've got solar panels on my roof and the edges of all my solar panels start getting cracked or burnt up, probably not going to be able to make much use of the light that's on my roof.
No, and that's what you need. If you want to build big plant material, you need to have those solar panels. You need to have that energy.
Okay, so I want to avoid nutrient burn. The number one thing that comes to mind is today's sponsor.
Hey, a little Grow Dots. I use Grow Dots because they deliver consistent nutrition. I mean, that's what's important. You want just the same way when we eat. We want a consistent meal, consistent breakfast every morning gets us going. You want to eat dinner about the same time. You mix them in at the beginning of the grow, and they deliver consistent nutrition throughout all the way to harvest. You put them in once at the beginning, and they feed all the way to harvest. So if you want to learn more, go on over to realgrowers.com and check it out. All right, if you're not using Grow Dots, you might be burning your plants, man. Come on, let's get into it.
Okay, so assume that I'm one of those growers that likes to kind of micromanage everything, and I love to be in there mixing and measuring and weighing out my own nutrients. Let's get into some tips that I can use to avoid burning my plants.
Sure. The first one is to look at them. I mean, they'll tell you a lot. If you see a burnt tip going down is usually a sign that it's mild overfeeding. Check your nitrogen. Nitrogen's a really easy one to see because the plants will get dark green. If you've got a plant that's super dark green, almost purple, it's probably got too much nitrogen in it.
Okay, and then you were talking about the differences in grows because your grow is like running on all gears. You've got CO2 in there. You've got these great HLG lights in there. Versus my grow, it's just a small tint, and I don't have any CO2 in there. Well, other than just atmosphere.
Sure.
So how does that play into effect?
You do want to match. You want to match the amount of nutrient you're giving it with the performance of your grow. So if you've got a lot of light, if you're running 800, 1,000 ppfd of light or even more, if you're running 1,000, 1,200 ppm of CO2, well, then your plants are going to grow faster. So they will need a little bit more food, right? Or they'll need a decent amount more food. If you're just in a little 2x4 tent or a 2x2 tent with 100-watt light and no CO2, your plants aren't going to build themselves. They're not going to photosynthesize as aggressively. So they're not getting as much CO2, which is what the plant's built from, and they're not getting as much light as what the energy it comes from. So they're not going to need as much nutrient.
So if I took the nutrients that you would feed in your environment and I tried to feed that same amount to my plants in my environment, I run the risk of burning my plants.
You would most likely burn your plants, yeah.
Okay. All right. And so since we're talking about different types of nutrients, I've heard you mention that some nutrients are really easy for the plant to absorb.
Sure.
And some nutrients take a little bit of work. And help me understand how that affects nutrient burn.
Yeah, there's some, you always hear of organics and synthetics. Organics have to be broken down into basically what synthetics are. Synthetics are already broken down nutrition that the plant's able to absorb. With the organics, microbes have to break them down. They have to slowly be broken down in the soil. Traditionally, they're a little bit safer or a lot safer because the microbes regulate breaking them down. As far as performance goes, nothing performs like the plant available synthetic.
The way that I'm envisioning this is like somebody who has to chew their food before they swallow it versus somebody who just has it pumped in through a feeding tube. And
IV, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine having to chew the food a little bit probably slows down the amount of food that you can intake. So you're probably not going to risk mass obesity that somebody who just has it pumped in. And so does that make sense?
Yeah, organically, as a general rule of thumb, yes, you can get, I can use this. You can get burnt with organics too. There are some organics that are very plant available, something like bat guano, very easy to burn your plants with. Something like bone meal is the opposite, to where it's crushed up bone. It has to be broken down. Your plant can't absorb bone right away, So it's a bit safer.
Okay, and you mentioned microbes in the soil, breaking down that stuff,
Yeah.
regulating. Can you explain a little bit about how microbes work with organic? But then also, I've had people ask the question: the microbes in recharge, will they also work with synthetic?
Sure. The microbes traditionally in soil break down nutrients. They'll take that bone meal, they'll break it down. They'll get the calcium out of it in an ionic form, and they'll deliver that to the plant. So it needs those microbes to work. In synthetics, when you're using plant available nutrients, the microbes act as a regulator. They can skip the point of breaking things down, and then they just hold on and regulate and deliver it. When we think of bacteria, I don't know any better analogy than this, but when you wake up in the morning, you've got bacteria on your teeth and they're sticky. Okay, well, that is the same way that your soil is. When you put microbes in your soil, you make it sticky, and then all this nutrient can stick to it.
So synthetic nutrient that would normally just go straight to the plant and maybe burn it, those microbes hold on to it and make sure that they don't deliver it until it actually needs it.
Or wash right out. Also, if you think about salt, when you go to the beach, you can wash the salt water right off you. Over at the showers, man, there's no bond. There's nothing bonding it to the organic material. So this way, you've got those microbes in there. They're bonding it. They're keeping it stuck in the soil. And then these are mobile microbes. They're able to deliver it to the plant when it needs it.
Yeah, and if I'm spending a bunch of money on 9 different bottles and I'm dumping it into my plant and it washes right out as soon as I water it, not the ideal situation.
Nope. And I mean, you can test it. You can test your runoff when you're not using when you're using synthetic nutrients. You literally once a week, you're supposed to water it till a bunch of water runs off the bottom, and then you're supposed to test it. A lot of times it comes off the hook. Like it comes, it'll come over 2,000, which my meter only reads to 2,000. That's how much runoff you can get. That's how much extra nutrient you can get, and that's dangerous. All that is plant available. That's why a lot of these manufacturers will tell you to water till runoff all the time. They literally want you pushing the old nutrient or their nutrient out instead of using it, man.
I can imagine that's great for their bottom line.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Okay, so let's do a recap real quick. What are the 2 most important things that I need to keep in mind to avoid nutrient burn?
Using the right amount of nutrient for your environment or for your grow setup, match the amount of nutrient with the amount of light and the amount of CO2, and microbes. I would say microbes are a big deal. Get yourself a regulator. If you think about microbes, they're in that rhizosphere. They're in that spot where the root meets the soil. That's where those transactions are happening. So get a moderator in there, something that regulates, and those are what the microbes do, whether it's the mycorrhizae that is along the roots or the bacteria that is in the soil. Give yourself a regulator in there, and that's what the microbes do.
Kind of like a buffer that helps prevent nutrient burn and helps prevent nutrient lockout.
Yeah, lots of buffers.
Lots of buffers.
But that's just me. That's how I avoid nutrient burn. If you've got a tip of how you avoid nutrient burn, let me know in the comments. And if you dig this video, please hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and check out the other couple videos YouTube is recommending over here. Thanks, y'all.